Good afternoon, everyone. You can't it's like I wish you could laugh. Like it's a murder case that seems to not actually ever come to an end. Um and you have to feel for Peggy O'Keefe, hearing that the jury is not guilty again on one, I'm going to guess 1 and 3, and then hung on what I think is misdemeanor OUI. So this is, as I stated earlier, um, I think on Saturday, what would have happened last time in the first trial had that misdemeanor OUI been there? She would have been convicted of that. And this whole thing doesn't happen. But because, and the jury doesn't even know this, that if they do not come to a unanimous decision on count two, it can be retried. If they're unanimous on 1 and 3, those are done. And they come out and says not guilty, not guilty. Those are done. But if they are hung because one juror refuses to convict for misdemeanor OUI, the Commonwealth is absolutely going to try this again. Because you get the charge, the charge that you most likely want to get anyway, and free and clear. Because double jeopardy is not going to attach to it. It's a complete separate charge. And that's how it is. That's how it is. So I bet the defendant herself would go into that jury room and say, please convict me of misdemeanor OUI. I did it. Please do it. Don't try to hold out for me. This is going to prolong this for another year. Because if you cannot come to unanimous decision on any one of those charges, on all 5 boxes, then they are hung. And that can be retried. How could they decipher all the evidence? What I can tell you is, I don't know if this was the best jury picked. So I was on and I've said this, Law and Crime Court TV, Prosecutors Podcast, live now from Fox. Jury selection, every battle is won and lost before it is ever fought. And in a criminal trial, that's jury selection. So what I can tell you is when I was hearing more of the younger makeup of the jury, I'm like, that's not what I would have. I'm like, Hank Brennan is exceptionally good at her. Tried an exceptional case, but I would have never allowed that many young people on my jury in this type of case. Young people sympathize with her. They know about they think about the corruption. They're all into true crime and conspiracies, and they often leave facts at the door, unfortunately. When I'm trying a case, I have as few young people on my jury as I can. I try to cause challenge. If not, I preempt them. I get them off my panel. I want dads 40 to 60, and I want moms 40 to 60. That's the range. Maybe a little bit younger if they have multiple kids and maturity. I do not want young 30-somethings on my jury. I absolutely do not want 20-somethings on my jury if I'm a prosecutor. If I'm a defense attorney, that's where I want. And I'm doing this conspiracy. Like when I did I tried a sale of marijuana case. This was almost 3 years ago. There's a video. 2 eyewitnesses, law enforcement witnesses, ID my guy as the person who was dealing drugs. But since the prosecutor was trash, I just literally stacked it with such a young jury who didn't care about marijuana that when I said it's not enough, I put on no defense, 35-minute not guilty. Many are saying, and they are not. Many are saying not guilty, and they are not. Free Karen Reed. Yeah. Like I said, the murder is just still a stretch to me. I get it. The evidence is there. It supports it, but the jury is not buying it. The first one didn't buy it. The second one didn't. And this was a much stronger case. And this was out the Trooper Michael Proctor's. This was without Brian Higgins, just based on this collision nonsense and the Bowden instruction. So it's like, how do you, if this is actually true, and they, 22-year-old on the jury, goodbye. That's honestly what I would do if I was if I was still a prosecutor. A 22-year-old, absolutely not. First jury, I can't understand how they'd be unanimous on any NG. It's like I said, It's that they're saying that there wasn't enough, or they're using the Bowden instruction. I posted on Twitter and I saw it, and it was something I noticed. ADA Lally was arguing hard against the Bowden instruction. It was there in the first trial, but I think as the trial went on, the parties realized, I mean, the prosecution realized, like, oh my God, is this instruction giving this younger jury the cover it needs to acquit Karen Reed of murder and leaving the scene of the accident involving death? Um, it is it's pretty stunning. I'm not like I take that back. I'm not absolutely stunned, but hearing it is just like this is what the defendant has created. This is the environment that it's like we're supposed to question our whole reality about everything. When in reality, this is a pretty straightforward case. And people don't even realize that it's like, oh, well, they didn't say this. And like, no, that didn't happen. When a juror actually asked the question, are those videos evidence? That I couldn't, I had no words. If I had just tried a case for 8 weeks and a juror member that I allowed onto my panel said, are the videos evidence? Can we consider them? When Hank Brennan must, every time he does that, seek it to admit into evidence. So yeah, it's potential. This one holdout is an FKR, not knowing that she's going to do more harm to the defendant. She would absolutely take misdemeanor OUI and take her chances with Judge Canoni, who can only give her up to 2.5 years in jail. That's simple. It's not prison, it's house of correction. And you heard the hot mic while Alan Jackson was saying, is like, I can't do this again. And if they hang on that second count, he's not going to be back. Elizabeth Little is not going to be back. You can't do you have other parts of your practice, and you just can't keep doing that. What makes you sense about the jury selection? What that, but this is important. And this is something, probably one of the only things Hank Brennan missed, because he tried one of the best cases I've ever seen. His closing argument was exceptional. His crosses, exceptional. But the one thing he is from Alan Jackson's generation of trial attorneys. The newer generation of like the people my age, I'm 34 and younger, are all this true crime and thinking about what about this? That's what they're used to doing. But what about that? What all these questions that people are asking that had no relevance? That's what they're doing. And that's why you can't, anybody under 40, you get them off your panel. You use your strikes as fat as whatever it takes. You don't need these people who are just obsessed with true crime, who are just wanting to be heroes to the pink people out front on your panel. You just can't have that. They can't find an untainted jury. It really, it makes you wonder. It's really, really tough to think about that. It's just people are so they are so entrenched in this position, and all of the people have been gaslit into believing what they see is fake, and that it's all a cover up, and she's just being railroaded to pay. And why wouldn't they go again? Charge her more support, pay for it. I don't think Alan Jackson wants to do this again. I don't think on a personal level he can do this again. I think with him being in LA, it'd be a real stretch for him to do this for a third time. Cheating, yeah, it is. It leaves a real bad taste. It really leaves a bad taste in your mouth that you can just gaslight the jury pool, and then just continue to convince them and get away with murder, manslaughter, killing John O'Keefe. That's the reality of it. Can she get jail time from witness intimidation cases? Yeah, potentially, but those are far off. Yeah, I do worry about future trials as well. Do you think they'll pull the jury right away after? You can't do it. The only way you can pull a jury is if You find them guilt. Like they asked, should the panel be polled? No. Like when I was a prosecutor, if I lost a case, I never polled the jury. They already said it's not going to change. Jury saying on two charges by question. Yes. If I were to guess, I think we're in the, like Alan Jackson said, I think we're in the same predicament that we were last year. And yeah, she said she hit him and they don't believe it. That's the ridiculous part, is that that's the problem with this younger jury, is that they need evidence that doesn't exist. They need the video. They need so much overwhelming, because they're brought up with this idea that has to be proven beyond all doubt. That was the problem. That is a problem with the younger panel. That's the reality of it. If you're a defense, you always want a younger panel, especially on marijuana cases. Nobody cares. I literally, in that case I spoke about earlier, I spoke for 12 minutes in the entirety of the trial, including openings and closings. 35-minute not guilty. Isn't trial? I think we need professional jurors. Oh, maybe. I wish. Maybe there's a pressure tactic from the other jurors. Thoughts? No. They wouldn't do that. The phone stopped moving. Yeah. It's just like, what more do you need? And then it's just like, the problem is they're asked, have you formed opinions? And what I can tell you is too many women on that panel, younger women, are just detested by Michael Proctor. They didn't even have to call him. They wrote his text message in, and they're like, I don't care. Matt, I feel stick. They're going to find her not guilty on 2 counts, possibly 3. How can we have faith in our criminal justice? It's really unfortunate. It really is. It makes you wonder. It's just like, how are, like, when cases proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and you just have this social media team, and because if it doesn't end in a outright acquittal, this case will be tried again. It will. Misdemeanor motor vehicle homicide. I mean, motor vehicle manslaughter. They're absolutely going to go again. And it's like, what don't we have this time? What could we find that will put us over the edge? And it's, first off, picking a better jury. That was the first and foremost. Finding people. I'm doing jury selection. I had my client, so I was in the process of going through a jury pool about 6-7 weeks ago, and I'm going through and I'm talking to my clients, like, we don't want this person on the jury. We want this person. My client brings a Bible to court every time she goes. And one of the jurors wrote in her questionnaire, my hobbies are reading the Bible. I'm like, check. I want that person on my jury, because I'm going to make sure my client's Bible is in plain view so that person sees that. Why such a young jury? It just, I don't know. It's something that should have been caught. Yes, they're infected. They're much more susceptible to social media. And I just have a hard time thinking that a lot of them didn't actually make up their minds. And that's why you don't want people, you don't want that young people. Hey, do you have Instagram and Twitter? No, you don't want those people at all. Matt, thank you for all that you've done throughout this entire trial. Absolutely. Thank you. Happy to do it. Many free FKRs or older folks, was why I think they went young. That's a mistake. You need going young. I can tell you this. Last summer, the day they declared the mistrial, I was in Boston, and I think I've said this on a previous stream. I was walking back from the garage. I was at a restaurant, and I just saw a bunch of young people screaming at the top of their lungs, "Free Karen Read." It was just endless. People think, the younger kids think it's cool. 20 somethings, college age. I think she said it herself. She has something like 9 Harvard law people working for them. They're obsessed. They actually think it's not the truth. So the fact that they asked the question tells you what you need to know about the jury. Yeah, that's it. If you had one juror who didn't know the videos weren't evidence, you have a real problem. Even if the jury, there's not one that put their foot down. I'm a 40-year-old female and would love not to budge with my beliefs. I think that unfortunately, um, this I'm guessing it's one juror. I think if that one juror came over to misdemeanor OUI, the case would be done. And it's just endless, and it just creates this. It almost enables it. It's like, oh, Turtle Boy was found not guilty, and now she was a murderer and leaving the scene. But it's like no, there hasn't been a verdict as far as I know. They just had a question, and it was just a wild one. It's just a um, it was just an absolute wild question. Um, the wording of the questions really screams compromised jury to me. Yeah. Um, that this is a theoretical question they cannot answer. And we might be in the same if they actually then if they because if they say they're hung, if they know they're so Judge Canoni said this is a theoretical question. So the jury doesn't know the answer to this. Instead of being like we're quit on this, and then we hang on this count. Why say gaslighting? Why say impossible to get into? It's the jury of her peers. Finally, how, even if she's guilty. Yeah, reasonable doubt is a abiding conviction of the defendant's guilt for the crime. Did this person do this or didn't they? And the overwhelming evidence is that she did it. There's just too many things that you just can't plan. But you have a situation where members of the panel are either in a position where they're just like asking all these questions that weren't answered that have no relevancy. So like the jury was looking to find her guilty of DUI, make sure the other wouldn't be hung. Yeah, here in Florida, and it would have been gotten done. Yes, absolutely. Somebody on a jury, and if they hang on that, that's kind of a blessing for the Commonwealth, maybe a curse, depending on how you look at it. Because if it's misdemeanor OUI, the case is over. That's double jeopardy because she's been found guilty of one of the lesser included. Case done. So I think they would happily do that. They would happily trade that. They will take a misdemeanor OUI and try to see if they could get probation from Judge Canoni on a DUI. But the jury doesn't know that. And the jury is being like, we're trying to acquit her again, but we can't. We can't agree. A bit more to get rid of the murder too. Yes. I think if they don't get her this time for murder, I think they're going to dismiss that count. I think that it's just going, it just as you can see, it just confuses the jury. It just, it entrenches people. The goal with keeping the murder charge is to soften them up to make for motor vehicle manslaughter. But hearing murder, people are like, I don't know if it's murder. And if I don't know if it's murder, how do I know it's anything else? Yep, I think the jury is pro Karen. They're trying to end this. It's possible. And if they can't get that, if they can't get that agreement, then it's done. If they can't get an agreement, it's going to be retried. So we'll see. Any more questions? Your thoughts on the verdict slip change today? It did nothing. I explained that over the weekend and Monday, that what was going on with it. It's not hard to understand. Is what was going to happen if they wanted like a not guilty spot everywhere, and if they clip checking not guilty everywhere on the board on that page, they could argue double jeopardy attaches and they shouldn't have been found guilty of this and this, that, and the other thing. That's what they were going to do. And that's why Judge Canoni did not do that. So I think that with that, I think we're going to end today's session. If you have any other questions, be sure to send it to me on Twitter. But thanks for tuning in. Thank you.